Hello Reader Pops, welcome back to my channel. I haven't been here in 9 days. Feels like a long time. I'm finally filming the books that you should read for fall video. I know this is considered late, but it's still 91 degrees. So I have been pretending that it's fall, but it just hasn't felt right to film this video. But I'm finally getting around to it, and I have, I hope, a unique little list of books that I think are very fun to read during the fall because they're cozy. They're not necessarily fall themed, but they give me that cozy little feeling that fall as a season gives. So you're just gonna have to trust me on that. I don't really know what that means, but I'm gonna try to not recommend books that you've seen a million times in these videos, but hey, they get recommended for a reason, you know. I'll get the most obvious one out of the way because I recommended it last year and it is in a lot of these videos, but this book is one of my favorite books ever, so I'm gonna have to recommend it first. It is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I love pretentious books about pretentious people, and that is what this is. You're following 7 characters. We've got the found family trope, my favorite. They're all prestigious little actors, and they're practicing for a Shakespeare play. So there is a lot of Shakespeare throughout, but I don't necessarily get any of the references or understand Shakespeare that well, but I could still understand this. So I feel like it's not that bad if you don't have a degree in literature, but one of them dies. So I remember the first like 50 pages or something, you didn't even know whose point of view you were reading from. And I was just on the edge of my seat waiting to see what his name was, who we were following. It was just such an interesting way to start out the book, and I felt like I was gonna be confused while reading this. But after the first like 55 pages, it's not confusing at all, and it's just one of my favorite books ever. I would definitely reread this. So you need to read this if you haven't for fall. It's definitely the time to do it. The book that always gets paired with that one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which pretends to be a modern day classic. Maybe it will be. This one was much slower, and I enjoyed it, but it's definitely one of those experiences where you're like, I'm gonna take a long time and I'm going to commit mental energy to this book. So this one I love so much. This one I did not give 5 stars, it was like a 4. This one's like a 6-star book for me. So then if you like fantasy romance, you need to read The Dance of Thieves duology by Mary E. Pearson. They're beautiful, they're thick, but it's enemies to lovers, fantasy romance. You've got politics, you've got them riding around on horses, you've got backstabbery, you have amazing plot that keeps you on the edge of your seat, and just overall a very dark and cozy atmosphere going on. I love this series. I gave it 5 stars and it's so good. I feel like if you're not really a fantasy reader, it takes a little time to adjust to the fact that you are reading a fantasy world where there's some made up words, but it's so good. If you just commit like 50 pages worth of brain energy, you'll enjoy the entire series. So, okay, next I did a video where my husband Ryan chose the books that I had to read for a week, and I read 3 books. So if you haven't seen that video, go watch it. I really liked how it turned out, but he made me read Harry Potter. So book 1, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I did read this when I was little, but I was like 10 years old, so I didn't remember much, if you can imagine. But the entire time I was reading this, I was actually shocked at how autumnal it is. It really is. I mean, even the colors on the book and the plaid spines, it's so perfect for the fall, and I was not expecting that. So if you haven't read these, or you read them in your childhood, I say pick them up again, and all of you guys in the comments wanted me to continue the series, so I think I'm gonna have to do that. That'll be on my fall TBR. It was a little bit slow for me in certain places because I just feel like it's the first book in a series, but it's so short. It's like 300 pages. When I was little, these felt massive to me. So if you haven't read Harry Potter, read it in the fall. Also another classic, if you haven't read, I recently read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien? Who knows? I think it's Tolkien. I'm not sure though. And it was actually so much easier to read than I thought. I don't know why I thought I was gonna read like a crazy old classic because he died in 1973. So this is not a work of the 1800s. This book was funny. It's about a little adventure, and it's a little bit slower than like, you know, a cutesy little modern day read. But if you want to have a slower pace, fun, cozy little adventure, and you want to read The Hobbit because it's The Hobbit, I highly recommend it. I was not expecting my experience to be this good with it, and I ended up loving it. And I was actually laughing out loud for so much of it. And I just feel like this would be perfect if you made some tea. You perhaps threw a fire on the TV if you don't have a real fireplace, because who has those anymore? I don't know. Well, maybe you do if you have an older house. But anyways, sit by a fire, drink a little tea, sit in a bubble bath, and read this book. It's very fun. Then I have the Inheritance Games series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm currently reading the 3rd book. That'll be fun, but if you've never heard about the series, it's compared to Knives Out the movie, which is one of my favorite movies ever. It's just a classic mystery adventure with subplots of romance. It's so fast paced. The chapters are literally a page and a half every single chapter consistently, and it's recommended a million times for a reason. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend. I feel like it's such a diverse series because I could recommend this to like a 12-year-old and also a 40-year-old, and I feel like they would both really enjoy it. Give it a chance if you haven't checked it out yet. Okay, this is a book I never get to recommend, but I really loved it. I read it last year and I gave it did I give it 5 stars? I gave it like 4.5 or 5 stars, but that is Finley Donovan is Killing It by El Cazimano. I love the cover, and this is considered a cozy mystery, which is basically like where murder takes place, but it's not gruesome, it's not graphic. It's like a good guy does something on accident, and it's always the bad guy who dies. It's never sad. It's always just very like whimsical and fun, and feels a little fake because it's just not dark at all. It's still kind of like fluffy, funny in a way, just because it's so outlandish, but they're called cozy mysteries for a reason. So this woman gets overheard talking to her agent about a murder mystery book that she's writing, and someone overhears her and thinks that she actually murders people for a living and hires her to murder her husband. She doesn't mean to go down this route, but the book happens. So things happen. It kind of stresses you out because they're making bad decisions, but it's so fun. It definitely fits the vibe. If you have not read a Riley Sager thriller book, it's definitely the time. I feel like especially this one, Survive the Night. Look at it. It just looks like something you would read on a dark, dreary night. It's set in the 90s, which is fun. Tons of movie references. If you love movies, you might really like this book because the main character loves movies, but she basically ends up getting stuck in the car with a stranger by choice, but still. But her best friend had just recently gotten murdered on college campus, and now she's in a car with a stranger, and it's just dialogue and events that happen between them, and you're trying to figure out who this guy is and if he is the guy who killed her best friend. It's a little ridiculous. It's a little crazy. This book kind of got super controversial reviews, and I listened to the audiobook of it mostly, but I really liked it. It's simple and it's fun. I don't know why it got such bad reviews. I think Riley Sager is a great author. I read like 5 of his books after reading The House Across the Lake because I fell in love with his writing, but also Lock Every Door. This is set in an apartment in New York City, and I gave this one 5 stars. This one was so fun. Right off the bat, I love the imagery of the apartment, and something about it I was never bored. I just kept reading it. There was never a time or place when I wanted to put it down. It looked really scary because of the cover, but it's not that scary, I don't think. Highly recommend this. And then In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead is also one of those books that's dark academia with like 7 or 6 characters, and one of them gets murdered. This is set in a bunch of different time periods. You have flashbacks, but they're mostly 10 years later at a college reunion, and you follow Ashley, who's very obsessed with her image and perfection, and then a bunch of spacky. But then a bunch of crazy stuff happens, and you're trying to figure out who died and how, and the reveal was crazy. Good luck with that one. This one I gave like 4 stars, but it's very, I don't know, if you're in the mood for this kind of vibe, I feel like this one fits really well. And that's The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. It's an apartment set in Paris, so that's amazing. And then you're following 5 different point of views. This girl goes to stay with her brother, and her brother is missing, so she ends up just interviewing everyone who lives in the apartment, and you find out secrets. This book was more of like a one big reveal at the end, not small ones, so and it's not a 5-star because I kind of like when they do little reveals throughout, but it was still very cozy and I liked the atmosphere, and I did like the reveal. Those are all the books that I'm recommending, and now I'm going to talk about the books I want to read, so my fall TBR. I only have a small stack because I feel like I talked about a lot of them recently in my September TBR video, but I want to read Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It's so famous. It's like one of the original Book Talk books, but this is a trilogy, and they also have a show on Netflix, so I could watch it after. But I actually already read Six of Crows, which is a duology that comes after this trilogy, and everyone loves the second book in the duology, Crooked Kingdom. So I'm gonna go back, read this trilogy, then read this. I feel like fantasy just equals fall automatically, so that's perfect. And then I always forget that I have Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. It's a young adult dark academia mystery, murder mystery. Oh, it says Agatha Christie-like ecosystem. It's a detective story, deliciously atmospheric, a dash of romance. She's at an academy in Vermont, so that sounds amazing. And it's also a trilogy, so if I end up liking this, then I have 3 books to read. I can't wait to reread this book. I read it probably like 3 or 4 times in middle school, and I think that's why I'm so nervous to reread it, because I don't remember what it's like. I just remember how much I loved it, and I don't want that bubble to burst, but I don't think it will. If anything, I still have the movies, and I will always love those, so I'm going to read this fall. I thought I was gonna read it last fall. I don't know what happened, but this fall, I'm definitely reading this. If it gets rainy, I'm reading this. And in the same vein, Crave by Tracy Wolff. Sometimes I see you guys tell me to read the series because I have like 3 of the books on my shelf already. And I've started this first 60 pages. It's at an academy, which is so cool. These deckled edges are really deckled. The pages are like fluffy. Look at that. They're fluffy pages. So yeah, I think I could definitely become a fan of this series. That's all the books. Let me know if you have a recommendation of something I could read this fall or what you've read recently that's good. Go watch my main channel video if you haven't seen it already, and then follow me on Instagram and TikTok to see me pretend that it's fall, because that's been really fun for me. I bought a pair of Uggs and now my life has been changed. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for being here. Bye.